Now, we've all seen the first season of the Ahsoka series, and as expected, discussions and conversations about it have increased over the past few hours. In the spirit of adding our own voices to these conversations, we'll be breaking down each episode of Ahsoka Season 1, sharing our thoughts, highlighting the hidden details, and exploring the exciting Easter eggs you might have missed. From lightsaber battles to epic reunions and mind-blowing connections to other Star Wars stories, Ahsoka has taken us on an unforgettable ride. Welcome to Star Wars Deconstructed, students of the Force and acolytes of the galaxy. Whether you're a Jedi, Sith, or somewhere in between, join us today as we embark on this epic adventure. So of course, we're going to start with Episode 1. This episode had a pretty tough job on its hands. It needed to please die-hard fans of shows like Star Wars, The Clone Wars, and Star Wars Rebels, while also making sure newcomers didn't feel lost in this galaxy far, far away. And I have to say, it handles the challenge surprisingly well. First off, these opening scenes where we meet our Rebels characters totally hit the mark. If you're already a fan, it feels like coming home, right? But it's also super welcoming for those who are new to this world, giving us a good sense of who each character is. Plus, can we talk about that lightsaber battle? It's epic, and the little hints they drop about Ahsoka's future, they've got us intrigued. And don't even get us started on Thrawn. His looming presence adds a real sense of tension to the whole thing. The performances, the direction, and the writing, it all comes together beautifully, alongside some fun Easter eggs. It was like a warm little hug for all the diehards and a pretty enticing invitation for the newbies. But we gotta be honest, there was a bit of setup going on in some spots. It slows down the action a lot with all that exposition. But hey, that's the price you gotta pay, I guess, for setting up such a massive story for two different sets of fans, right? In all that, Episode 1 of Ahsoka nails its mission, even if it stumbles a bit on the way. Talking about those Easter eggs, there's a secret apprentice you might have missed in all the action. The episode's titled Master and Apprentice, and it's all about the dynamic between mentors and their students. But here's the twist, the most crucial apprentice here isn't wielding a lightsaber. Ahsoka Tano had her former apprentice Sabine Wren, who faced off Baylan Skoll and his apprentice Shin Hati. But there was another apprentice in the spotlight here, and it was none other than Dave Filoni. Yeah, the guy who's been an executive producer on shows like The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett made his grand entrance into the live-action Star Wars world with Ahsoka. Dave Filoni is the mastermind who brought Ahsoka to life back in 2008 in animated form, and now he did it in live action. He's been like George Lucas's Padawan, learning the ways of the Force from the creator of Star Wars himself. So it's pretty fitting that the premiere episode is titled Master and Apprentice. Now, we're all excited about the dynamics between Ahsoka and Sabine, the villains Baylan and Shin, and the nods to Anakin Skywalker. But what's been really cool is seeing how Filoni has grown into a master storyteller. He's taken all those lessons he learned from George and applying them to Ahsoka's journey. It's like he's becoming the Jedi Master of Star Wars storytelling. Episode 2 was titled Toil and Trouble, and this one comes in just a notch above its predecessor. And let's tell you why. So in Episode 1, we got a lot of character intros, set up the story, and did some good old exposition. But in Episode 2, it's like the show said, okay, we laid the foundation, let's get into that juicy plot progression. Ahsoka and Hera's journey to Corellia, that was a wild ride, and it all culminated in this epic aerial dogfight. You know, the kind of action we've been craving from Ahsoka. Plus, it's the first time she crosses lightsabers with the mysterious Inquisitor Merrick. We also got a glimpse of the show's true potential. It's revealed that Thrawn and Ezra are stranded in another Star Wars galaxy. That right there opens up the whole universe of possibilities for not just Ahsoka, but for the entire Star Wars franchise. And let's not forget the iconic moment from Star Wars Rebels, where Sabine promises to find Ezra and becomes Ahsoka's Padawan. That was a heartwarming callback that got us all nostalgic. All in all, Episode 2 takes the cake. It's got action, intrigue, and gives us the promise of an epic conflict ahead. The show found its groove and was ready to take us on an unforgettable ride. In the midst of all the excitement in Ahsoka Episode 2, there's a little detail about Sabine's loaf cat that might have slipped under your radar. Now, Sabine's loaf cat is a new addition to the Star Wars universe, and it's quite a charming creature. If you're a Star Wars Rebels fan, you've seen loaf cats before. These creatures were native to Lothal and were known for their mischievous nature and their taste for loth rats. In Rebels, we learned that loth cats were not the easiest creatures to domesticate, and they tended to live alone or in small groups when raising their young ones, known as kits. In fact, Ezra Bridger had a tough time connecting with them through the Force. But here's a little mystery for you. After introducing us to this adorable loaf cat in the early episodes, the show takes a turn at the end of Episode 2. Sabine gears up with her original Mandalorian armor and joins Ahsoka on an adventure. But what about her loaf cat? It's left behind in the Lothal Communications Tower, and we don't get to see what happens to it. Just considering how well Sabine cared for her furry friend, it's kind of hard to believe she just leave it up there. Did she let it down? Did someone else take care of it? That's a question that's hanging in the air, and the series doesn't give us any answers. Episode 3 was titled Time to Fly, Now, we just have to start by saying it's not a bad episode by any means. It's just that when you compare it to the others, it feels more like of a filler or a stepping stone in the grand scheme of things. First off, it's the shortest episode so far, barely clocking in over 30 minutes. That short runtime makes it feel a tad rushed, and it kind of ends abruptly. But hey, let's not write it off just yet. The scene with Hera and the New Republic Senate Committee was a real eye-opener. It showed us how the First Order's rise was fueled by some serious hubris. And when Ahsoka and Sabine teamed up, it was like a Clone Wars episode brought to life. Action-packed and thrilling. The training sequence at the beginning? Absolutely fantastic. And their entrance to Sietos? It was pure Star Wars magic. Now let's talk about the Purgil. Those creatures were breathtaking, and they set up something big for the future of Ahsoka. Plus Ahsoka's spacewalk? That's Clone Wars nostalgia right there, but in live action. But while the episode had some cool moments, it didn't push the main plot forward all that much. Without the Purgil and Huyang's hints about the Eye of Sion, it was just kind of there. So all in all, Time to Fly is not a bad episode, but it doesn't quite reach the heights of its predecessors. It's more like a bridge to the next thing in Ahsoka's journey. Having said that, we're always on the lookout for those hidden gems, and episode 3 of Ahsoka is no exception. This episode kicks off with an extended training session, and there's some cool stuff going on here. First up, we got Huyang and Ahsoka guiding Sabine through their lightsaber training, and they're using wooden swords, officially called bokken. That's a nod to Japanese martial arts, which was a big inspiration for George Lucas when he created the whole Star Wars universe. So it's a little homage to where it all began. And check this one out. Ahsoka encourages Sabine to cover her eyes during the training, which she calls Zatoichi. Now this is a clever twist on the name of a fictional swordsman, Zatoichi. This character, created by novelist Kam Shimozawa, was blind from childhood but became a master swordsman anyways. It's a nod to a long-running series of Japanese movies that had a massive influence on George Lucas and Star Wars. So it's cool to see these little Easter eggs thrown into the show. Episode 4 of Ahsoka, titled Fallen Jedi, is a roller coaster of epic proportions, and it might just be the best one in the series yet. First off, remember that abrupt ending from the last episode? Well, it was a running start for Fallen Jedi. No time wasted here. We dive right into the showdowns that we've been all waiting for. Merrick and Shin versus Ahsoka and Sabine, and the lightsaber choreography in these battles was top-notch, a massive improvement from the earlier episodes. Merrick's secret identity gets revealed in a jaw-dropping moment. Meanwhile, the skirmish between Shin and Sabine just adds more fuel to the rivalry, and Sabine's struggle to connect with the Force continues. Now let's talk about Ray Stevenson as Baylan. He absolutely shines in this episode, making Baylan one of the most intriguing characters in the series. That confrontation between Baylan and Ahsoka was breathtaking, showcasing his raw power and giving us hints about his past and future motivations. At this point, this is where it gets juicy. We learn that Sabine's family perished in the Great Purge of Mandalore, and this ties Ahsoka even closer to the Mandalorian. Plus, the hint that all of this could have been avoided if Ahsoka had trusted Sabine adds depth to the story. Sabine's decision to give Baylan the map to Thrawn is a game changer and leaves her feeling more alone than ever. And the cherry on top? Well, they ended. Ahsoka wakes up in the world between worlds with a return from Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker and Vader's theme playing in the background. This sets the stage for some massive shifts in the series. Now, episode 4 was already packed with action, reveals in a jaw-dropping cliffhanger, but here's something you might have missed. Remember Captain Carson Teva from The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 2? Well, he made a surprise return in Ahsoka Episode 4, and he brought some backup. When General Harrison Dula decided to run her mission to help Ahsoka and Sabine on Sietos, she called in Captain Teva. But what's interesting is that he didn't come alone. He brought a team of X-Wing pilots, and one of them is a star from The Mandalorian who you might recognize at first glance. It's none other than Brendan Wayne, the main double for Din Djarin, our beloved Mandalorian. In Ahsoka Episode 4, Brendan takes on the role of X-Wing pilot Lieutenant Lander. He's here to assist Hera and Carson, but sadly his character meets a quick end when Morgan Elsbeth jumps to hyperspace in the Eye of Sion. If you thought Episode 4 was a wild ride, Episode 5, titled Shadow Warrior, takes things to a whole new level. It had some massive shoes to fill after that epic cliffhanger, and it didn't disappoint. Now, one thing that really stands out in the episode is how it handles fan service. You see, when you're dealing with the world between worlds, it's so easy to get lost in meaningless cameos and recreations from the past. But Shadow Warrior doesn't fall into that trap. Ahsoka's journey through this mysterious plane is not just about nostalgia, it's crucial to the plot and her character development. That said, there are some amazing nods to Star Wars history that had us cheering. The recreations of moments from Star Wars The Clone Wars in live action were just fantastic. And let's talk about Hayden Christensen's return as Anakin. He delivered a nuanced performance that spans 3 eras of the character, from his Clone Wars days to his time as mentor and even his darker side. And let's not forget the lightsaber battles. They were absolutely stunning, especially the duels between Ahsoka and Anakin. The backdrop of the world between worlds and the Clone Wars battles added a layer of epicness that we hadn't seen before. But there's more to this episode than just lightsabers and nostalgia. Hera, Huyang, and Jacen Syndulla's journeys on Cietos is equally satisfying. Jacen gets his moment to shine, showing he's got the Force in him, just like his dad. And kudos to Kevin Kiner for his incredible musical score, especially that ending theme with the Purrgil. And of course, the icing on the cake, Ahsoka's transformation into Ahsoka the White. It's a symbol of renewal and hope, and it sets the stage for the next chapter of the series. Episode 6 of Ahsoka was appropriately titled Far, Far Away. From the very beginning, with Huyang narrating the iconic "a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away" line to Ahsoka, you could sense that this episode was going to take us to places we've never seen before. It gave off an adventurous vibe, reminiscent of franchises like Game of Thrones and Dune, as we ventured into new galaxies and explored unknown worlds and cultures. Now, Far, Far Away is a bit different from its predecessors. It's slower paced and has fewer action sequences, but it doesn't feel slow or dull for a second. The looming threat of Thrawn, which has been building up since episode 1, was finally coming to a head, and that tension kept us hooked. And speaking of Thrawn, Lars Mikkelsen's return as Grand Admiral Thrawn was absolutely perfect. Thrawn is shaping up to be Ahsoka's ultimate villain and the next big antagonist in the Star Wars universe. His alliance with the Night Sisters in Dathomir, along with the cold and tribalistic nature of his armies that's been in exile for nearly a decade, adds layers to his character that we've been craving. And then there's Sabine Wren's journey in this episode, which is quintessential Star Wars storytelling, exploring new characters, villages, and landscapes filled with warriors, bandits, and exiled Jedi fits perfectly within the Star Wars universe. But what really seals the deal is the highly anticipated return of Ezra Bridger, played by Amon Esfandi. Ezra's older version is spot on, and his reunion with Sabine from Star Wars Rebels is heartwarming. All of these elements, combined with the rich storytelling and world building, make Far, Far Away the second best episode in the series, right behind the epic journey we saw in episode 5. Ahsoka Episode 6 also dropped a major bombshell that ties the future of the Star Wars universe to an unexpected story from 5 years ago, Jedi Fallen Order. Now, we know that Ahsoka is rewriting the history of the Star Wars galaxy. It's revealing that there was once this intergalactic civilization that mysteriously collapsed ages ago. Ahsoka is on her way to Peridea, the ancient homeworld of the Night Sisters, and things are getting pretty exciting. But it's not just the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn that's making waves in the series. So here's the fun part. Inscriptions on Peridea in Ahsoka Episode 6 secretly connect the planet to Zepho, an ancient race that Jedi Master Eno Cordova investigated in Jedi Fallen Order. These inscriptions are written in Ur-Kitat, an ancient language adopted by the Sith because of its link to the dark side, also known as the Old Tongue. They're not easy to translate, especially because they've been flipped 180 degrees to make it even trickier, but a fan named Tommy Wald successfully translated them on Twitter, and here's what they read. Praise Kujet, ruler of all, may his reign last for all. Kujet was an ancient Zepho who fell to the dark side and once ruled Dathomir. But here's the kicker. He may have ruled Night Sisters across the entire galaxy because he's also honored at Peridea. Now, this is more than just a fun Easter egg because it means that Ahsoka is unknowingly continuing Eno Cordova's quest into the fate of the Zepho. It's connecting dots we've never known were there, and it made us even more excited about the future of the Star Wars universe. Ahsoka's penultimate episode, Dreams and Madness, was here to deliver some top-notch storytelling. This episode easily earns a spot in the top 3 of the series. First things first, it's great to see Hera Syndulla back in action after her absence in episode 6. Her tribunal against the New Republic adds depth to her character and keeps her arc alive in Ahsoka. When C-3PO makes a surprise appearance, it adds a layer of legacy and gives Leia Organa a sense of agency, even without a physical presence. But where Dreams and Madness truly shines is on the planet Peridea. Grand Admiral Thrawn, portrayed by Lars Mikkelsen, continues to be a formidable force. His tactical brilliance, military expertise, and in-depth knowledge of his enemies make him a formidable foe. If it weren't for the intriguing character of Baylan Skoll going his own way, Thrawn might have captured Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra. But Thrawn is no slouch. He has multiple contingencies in place, including stalling the heroes while he completes a mysterious cargo transfer. This not only establishes Thrawn's genius, but also sets the stage for an epic showdown in the next episode, where an Imperial victory seems increasingly likely. The battle sequences in this episode are a visual treat, with a chase scene that feels like Mad Max meets Lord of the Rings, as Ezra and Sabine defend their new allies. Seeing Sabine and Ezra fighting side by side is a delight for Star Wars Rebels fans, and Amon Esfandi does a fantastic job capturing Ezra's physicality and whimsical personality. And let's not forget about Ahsoka's dramatic entrance onto the planet, facing off against Baylan Skoll once again. This reunion is enough to tug at the heartstrings of any Rebels fan. With the promise of a sinister conclusion to the series, Dreams and Madness cements its place as one of the top 3 episodes in the Ahsoka series. Ahsoka Episode 8, titled The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, wrapped up Season 1 with a mix of excitement and anticipation for the future. However, it didn't quite reach the same heights as some of the earlier episodes in the series. One of the main issues with this finale was the lack of solid sense of finality, a problem we've seen in other Disney Plus shows from Marvel Studios and Lucasfilm. It seemed like the episode was trying to balance both concluding Season 1's story arc and setting up future storylines, and as a result, both aspects ended up feeling somewhat underwhelming. But don't get us wrong, there were still plenty of highlights in the episode. The action sequences were top-notch, particularly the siege on the Night Sisters' fortress with Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine teaming up. Ezra's new lightsaber and the emotional mention of his master Kanan Jarrus added a depth to the scene. The undead Night Troopers, while not the most formidable foes for the three Jedi, were visually inventive and suitably eerie given their Night Sister origins. And let's not forget the epic duel between Ahsoka and Morgan Elsbeth, which was exceptionally well choreographed and one of the series' best fight scenes. Kevin Kiner's music continued to shine, matching the tone of the episode perfectly and cementing his place as the true successor to John Williams in the Star Wars music world. The episode had its share of memorable moments, including Sabine using the Force for the first time, Ezra's reunion with Hera, and the final appearance of Anakin, and tantalizing teases involving Baylan Skoll and the Mortis gods on Peridea. However, it was somewhat disappointing that Baylan and Shin had minimal screen time in this episode, almost feeling tacked on to set up their future journeys after being absent for most of the episode. Thrawn's return also didn't feel as urgent or threatening as previous episodes had established. Overall, Episode 8 of Ahsoka served as a serviceable and enjoyable culmination of the first season, even if it didn't quite reach the heights of its early installments. It left us with excitement and anticipation for what's to come in the Star Wars universe. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and watch the next one.